part of like our family's culture and how we, you know, show love and affection for each other. So that's how I grew up, and my grandma was big into baking, and as a kid, like that's one of the easier things that you can help out with as a kid. And there was always like batter, you know, that part was fun. So the salad that I'm making, it's just a little chopped salad, nothing too fancy. Some candied walnuts. I'm gonna do like a lemon olive oil vinaigrette. Yeah. And I like the candied walnuts and the dried fruit just to give it a little sweetness. And then I'll also put some of the Parmesan Romano Asiago blend cheese in there as well.
Kenny, everyone.
Oh, hi, Kenny. Hello, Kenny.
Hi. Oh my goodness.
This is very much
eliminates all this gang violence.
I wouldn't call it a lazy woman's dressing, but it's definitely a simple dressing. So I put garlic salt in instead of chopping up some garlic. I put a
Well, you know what?
This is just a lemon and oil. Some people could call it a vinaigrette. It doesn't have any vinegar in it, but the lemon juice is the vinegar.
The nonprofit dealt with non-traditional women.
So yeah, any great dressing you want to have.
We dealt a lot with grants.
You want to have acid.
We grant from the LA County. So
if I wanted to make a Caesar style dressing, I would add milk and cheese to this. I thought about it. I decided against it. Keep it simple today. Yeah. And the other important thing about dressing is the salt. You always want to add salt to your dressing. At least I do. And you don't really need a lot. So if you add salt to it, you don't need a whole lot. So it adds a nice flavor to the dressing without, or to the salad rather, without overdressing it. So you don't end up with soggy salad.
But at 8, you're like, what do you mean? I was supposed to be married with a girl and a boy, and a dog, and a house, and 2 cars. You know, did you play the Whoopsie game? Was it like MASH or something? Yeah! Oh, right! So, according to MASH, you were going to be with Eric Harper.
You know, I just hearing him, and I'm so proud of my dad, you know, thanks to him, you know, I'm where I'm at. And I see my generation. My sisters are all teachers in South Central, Boyle Heights area, and the kids are not where they should be. And they promote, and they're just activists as like, you know, you wouldn't have this education if it wasn't for these people, you know, that promoted this education for you. And that's why I think I'm like, okay, I believe in higher education. It wasn't for my father, I wouldn't be where I'm at because of my Hispanic last name. You know? So people don't know that history, that we went through a lot. Like Hispanics went through a lot here in this like LA region. Like we same thing. You know, the Zuzus, all of that, you know, Black Panthers, the Brown Berets, it was the same thing. But yet that history is not incorporated in the history book.
Yeah, that in elementary or high school. I know in some of the Cal States you have the Chicano studies.
Yeah, you do.
Where if you take those classes,
if you take it,
then
you'll
learn more things like that. But as far as the regular history that they teach
it's not out there in the books.
It's not out there at all. At all.
No. So I recall when Pete Wilson came into as a governor. As a little girl, we were walking down the First Street Bridge. It's Boyle Heights into downtown LA. I was a little girl and I remember seeing like my sister and my dad drawing like Dennis the Menace. And I was like, why Dennis the Menace? That's so weird. But I liked it because I love how cute, you know, cartoon. But Pete, you know, Dear Mr. Pete, which was the neighbor of Dennis the Menace, the cartoon. So this was the whole thing about like the Proposition 186, you know, it was Pete Wilson. And I was like, okay, now growing back, I'm like, oh, now I understand why there was a Dennis the Menace drawn as a cartoon. Because Pete, you know, was the neighbor that would always like, you know. Until this day, I just finally like got it. I'm like, okay, now I understand. So yeah, I remember a little girl, we would always go into like protests with my dad.
Yeah. So how long was your dad involved with you said berets? What is that?
Yeah, the brown berets.
Brown berets.
Yeah, so my grandma pulled him out of it because she was scared. She was like afraid because that's when this professor called Escalante, he was assassinated. Well, there's like a whole theory what happened to him. They don't know what happened to him because he was such a promoter of like free education for everyone, and he disappeared all of a sudden. No one knows what happened. So that's when my grandmother killed my father and forced him so they just get out of that. My uncles went to the Vietnam War, and my dad went to like, yeah, because he was the youngest. So yeah, you don't know what happened to those persons that just evolved the whole Chicano civil rights. They disappeared.
Right.
So now I'm gonna add the sausage to the vegetables so that it'll cook. Wanted to get the vegetables in there first because they tend to take a little bit longer. So now I'm gonna add some of the sausage in here. And I'm gonna remove the casing and just and then crumble the sausage in the pan so that it's like having just like ground sausage versus the links.
My friend posted a photo. She's a vet and she's constantly rescuing dogs that you know, so she's a vet, she works at a hospital, and dogs get dropped off, and so she tries to get them homes. And so she posted a photo after he was fully recovered, saying that he needed a home. But this is him. And that's his story.
This is just like an Alfredo sauce. Yeah, it's I use for the lasagna. I just am using cream and milk. The liquid from the milk will evaporate, and I find it's a nice balance to the cream. So a lot of times Alfredo sauce is primarily buttercream and like Parmesan. But for the lasagna, I found that I don't really need so much butter and Parmesan because the starch from the vegetables thickens the sauce. So so it actually turns out really nice without having to use the extra fat. So I'm not opposed to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like that?
That's pretty fire.
So she submitted her time.
Any action in life is always better when done with a solid.
Gets leave in July.
Yeah.
So she's hoping.